Hello and welcome to the MSTieCast. I'm your host, Toby Mobius, and joining me is my cohort, Joshua McLeod.
Back to life, a la soul to soul.
Very well said, very well said. And on today's program, we have a very special guest, someone I've been trying to get for the show for a while, and I'm so glad he's finally here, Mr. LittleKuriboh, Martin Billany.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm very excited to join you guys.
Yay!
I'm very excited to have you here.
Yeah, because I think you first contacted me, like, when?
I believe it was last year, after MomoCon.
Jeez, that's right, and it's been, oh my gosh. This is how I work. I agreed to do something, then 2 years later I'll remember that I agreed to it, and then I'll do it. So.
Well, we're both busy. You're far busier than I am, but I've had computer problems and all kinds of things, so it worked out eventually.
And I have no life, so it's really irrelevant.
Yeah, I'm very glad to be able to do this, because, like, the first time I got the internet back in England, the first website I went to was MST3K.com, because I was on a huge MST3K kick, because we just got on cable, which is why we ended up getting the internet, and we had Sci-Fi Europe on the cable subscription, and of course they showed MST3K on the Sci-Fi channel, but we never had Comedy Central back in the day, so I don't think we ever got seasons 1 through 7 in England. If we did, then it's a surprise to me. But getting to see that on the Sci-Fi channel, just stumbling upon it, it was episode 803, the Mole People. Mole People, is that right?
That would be 803, the Mole People.
There we go. It was that episode, and I was watching it, and it was like, the opening to it is kind of like watching one of their shorts, because it's mostly stock footage, and it's John Agar sort of waxing philosophical. So just watching them react to that stuff was kind of the perfect indoctrination to the show, because it was everything that's great about the show and everything that's terrible about the movies that they watch. So I was laughing from the get-go. So this is kind of like coming full circle, because the first time I signed on the internet, it was the first thing I did, and now I guess it's not the last thing I'm doing, but it's like 12 years later. I don't know.
So what is it about the show that appeals to you specifically?
I love bad movies. I'll be very honest. I love the cheesiness. I don't know. I like seeing projects like that people are obviously very passionate about. Because the best bad movies are the ones that try really, really hard and fail even harder. I don't like a boring movie to me is just a boring movie is worse than a bad movie. When you can obviously tell nobody cared, and when you can obviously tell that nobody on the cast or the crew was trying at all. But when everybody's going full engines blazing or whatever, and they just are careening down the cliff towards like truly abysmal cinematography and everything, and just everything goes wrong. It's wonderful. It really is. And I the thing that hooked me at first was just the commentary and the charm of the show, and Mike Nelson is and will always be kind of a hero to me, just because of his delivery and his writing style, and just him in general. He's awesome. But I think that the thing that kept me watching was just to see how bad the movies would get, because I even going back and watching the older episodes, I had no idea that half of these movies existed and could possibly be as bad as they are. And it's great that a show like MST3K has been able to highlight them and give them kind of the life that they never had when they first came out. And it's a shame that, you know, some great people worked on these films, and they don't like to talk about them. But if I worked on a movie like Amanos: The Hands of Fate or something like that, I'd talk about that like crazy. I'd be really proud of that. So it's kind of nice that MST3K has kind of given people an opportunity to see those movies and enjoy them, like, legitimately.
Absolutely.
Very, very well said. Now, you said you started off with Season 8, and therefore you started off with Mike.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
So I'm assuming that Mike is your favorite of the two hosts, then.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to even think about who my favorite is, because they're very different people, and the style of the way they host the show is very different. I laugh at Mike a lot more than I do Joel, and I think that's not really a fair comparison, because Mike is very much a character, whereas Joel is just sort of being himself, and he's being the host of the show, and he's being the dad to the bots and everything. Mike is kind of just a friend of the bots. He's like another guy who showed up and is also goofy, and I really admire the guy as well. I don't know as much about Joel as I do about Mike. Just like you said, I got into the show when Mike was the host. I really find that man extremely entertaining, and I agree with a lot of his opinions, and I don't know.
Most of my favorite episodes are Mike episodes, but I prefer Joel as a host. So
Okay, that's interesting. What is it you like about Joel?
His manner of speaking, his very sleepy presentation, and the gadgets.
Mhm.
I love all the gadgetry.
Yeah,
I'm a sucker for things that don't make a whole lot of sense, but look really cool and do something neat.
Yeah, the Invention Exchange was definitely something that was sorely missed after Joel left. They tried, didn't they? Right after Joel left, they had Mike do a few Invention Exchanges, and then it just kind of fell to the wayside, which was a shame, but it was a very Joel thing.
Yeah, it wasn't really Mike's forte.
When Mike did it, we get a lot of these kind of non-invention things, like a Fabio kit or just like I don't know, just like an escape plan, stuff that's not really an invention per se, but it was part of the Invention Exchange. So it was kind of good that they dropped it after the fifth season.
But then we got Dr. Forrester experimenting on them more, so
Absolutely.
decent trade-off.
Dr. Forrester, if he counted as a host, he would be my favorite host, because Trace as Dr. F was genius. It was probably watching the show as it progressed. It was one of the best developed characters and one of the best performed characters, and just the design for the guy, all the green and the coloration of the hair and everything. It was amazing. It was like watching a Looney Tunes character come to life. It was like I Trace as Dr. F and as Crow, like in the show's like heyday, was just it was amazing. It was magical. It really was.
Really was.
Go ahead, Toby.
Oh, I was gonna say I'm kind of wishing you were at MomoCon when I actually did a Dr. Forrester cosplay.
Which year was that?
That was 2009 and 2010.
I just missed it then.
Yeah, you weren't there, and I had a full costume. It wasn't very good. It was made mostly from stuff from Goodwill, but I got to carry around film canisters, so that was pretty
nice. Do you have a Frank with you?
No, I didn't, but it's funny. I'm thinking about doing it again for another convention, probably later this year or next year, and I might have a Frank this time.
Oh, sweet.
Yay.
Very cool.
Did you know that Forrester, when you first saw it, did you make the connection that Forrester was the same actor as Crow, or was that something that caught you by surprise when you looked at it in the credits?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Well, here's the thing. With living in England and having it wasn't great internet, it was a dial-up internet. The best I could do as far as watching episodes online or even experiencing them was just reading transcripts and just researching the show in general and looking up like on like MST3K satellite news, just reading up as much as I could, because I didn't have any kind of connection that could support downloading episodes. And nobody in England really knew the show existed. I mean, there were obviously some fans who were like hardcore, like online fans or something, but I didn't know anybody or have any way of seeing the show until like a year into my, interest in the show, when I actually contacted people in America and they started sending me tapes. But I had done my research for about 6-7 months until I actually saw an actual season 5 episode. I think the first one I saw was I Accuse My Parents, because it was on Rhino Home Video, and I actually purchased that one. And I already knew like everything about the show at that point. I knew half of the quotes. I knew most of the host segments, like from reading the transcripts and everything. So nothing really surprised me, but it really is insane how different those two characters are portrayed. Like Dr. F is very uptight and he's like an older man, and then Crow is like this infant, this like wide-eyed, like crazy. It's such a difference in character, and he brings that puppet to life. He really does. Like, I wish I could meet the guy and tell him how like amazing the puppet work he did on that show was, because you can really like from season 1 to 6. It's like it's an amazing. I keep saying the word amazing, but it really, there is no other way to describe it. He did an incredible job.
That's just some more reason for you to come to Dragon Con at some point, because he usually comes down for that.
Yeah, I've heard that. I heard he, like, I don't know if it was Dragon Con or some other convention, but he once did like a panel about how to be an evil genius or something, and he was like one of the guest panelists, and he didn't really have much to say. But at one point, they talked about a science experiment where they taught a gorilla how to write or something like that, and he said that gorilla is now working in Hollywood as a producer or something like that, and I thought that was pretty funny.
Oh, Trace.
Say if you get a bunch of gorillas together to write a screenplay, it'll become a movie that will eventually be featured on Mystery Science.
I was going to say it would be Transformers 3. Since you did start off with Pearl, what's your opinion on her?
Oh gosh, I mean Mary Jo, I think she's great. I think she's very funny. The thing about Pearl is, I don't know how well she worked as a villain. I don't know. I mean, I couldn't take it. Like, having gone back and compared it to Dr. Forrester, it's a very different. See, I feel like I don't really like Pearl as a villain. I don't think it works. I honestly think that they would have probably been better off just having Mike and the bots. If they had to do some sort of storyline or anything, it could have just been Mike and the bots just blundering their way through the universe and meeting new things every week or something. But Pearl, she came into her own in season 9, but then season 10, I felt the Forrester segments, the Castle Forrester segments, were kind of just redundant and didn't really go anywhere. I don't know. Season 9 was probably the peak of the Pearl Forrester years, but I don't know. Overall, I wasn't that thrilled by her. I liked Brain Guy. Brain Guy was great.
Yeah, Brain Guy.
Yeah, Bill Corbett did a really good job at actually, because when he's introduced, it's like he's just one of like 3 or 4 other observers, and like if you would have looked at that and thought one of those characters is going to be a recurring villain in every episode, I would have been like, that isn't going to work. But Bill Corbett, he really made that character work a great job.
I've often said that Pearl is... Dr. Forrester was an actual villain, but Pearl was more like the mean landlady.
Yeah. And I think they tried to go with that as well. They tried a little bit at the beginning to make her an actual legitimate threat, but as soon as you get to the end of season 8, it's pretty much like when you see Mike and Pearl sharing like a coffee on like the Widowmaker, and that was like pretty much the moment where you're like, okay, she's not a villain, she's just another character on the show, but and it's okay, you know, she's not a bad character or anything. It's just I never really, compared to Dr. Forrester and Frank, there just wasn't the same dynamic.
No.
Dr. Forrester had like a psychopathy to him, to where they forced him in. I think we've talked about this before, but I never really understood why Pearl was sending him the movies.
Revenge, I think she said. I think that's what she said.
Yeah, I believe her reasoning was she somehow blamed them for the death of Clayton, even though she smothered him with a pillow.
Yeah,
that's what she said, but I never really bought it, like, because she refers to them as if this was still part of an experiment or something.
Right.
Well,
it's very odd.
It is more justified in season 10 when she's trying to get her certificate or whatever from...
The accreditation from the Institute of Mad Science.
That's right. I forgot they introduced that. And they introduced that right before the show got cancelled, which was really unfortunate.
So they just let them drop it like halfway through the season.
Oh, yeah. Like, well, we're not going to get picked up. Why are we going to take your notes anymore? Which makes sense.
Yeah.
And by the end, she became dictator of Qatar.
Not a bad country to be dictator of.
Could be. There are worse countries to be dictator of.
What do you think about have you seen any season 1? And by season 1, I mean the first Comedy Central season.
Right. I have seen, I think, about half a dozen season 1 episodes. I know I've seen the first episode, The Crawling Eye. I've seen Robot Monster, and it's a bit of a mixed bag. I know they were kind of... Will you guys answer me this for me, because you guys probably know better than me. Were they actually ad-libbing in the theater for that season?
No. First season, no. KTMA, yes.
That's right, KTMA.
I am told that Josh, J. Elvis Weinstein, did a few ad-libs, and that's one of the reasons why he was eventually let go. Is he just, when he saw an opportunity, he took it, but that messed up everyone else.
Right. I can understand that. See, I don't know what it is about season 1, but the theater segments seemed so slow and so dry and very amateur. I don't know, maybe that's just my interpretation, but it really felt like they were trying to let the movie be just speak for itself, and there are a lot of dry, quiet moments. Robot Monster, I actually really like. I don't know if because I haven't seen enough of the season to say, but I don't know if they like developed the show to the point where that wasn't a problem as much anymore. But comparing something like, what was the movie where the hand? No, it's not his
Crawling
hand.
hand.
The crawling hand, yeah. Comparing that episode to Robot Monster is like night and day. Because like crawling hand, I was just waiting to laugh the whole time. I didn't remember anything that made me laugh. But Robot Monster, I thought was so much fun. Probably because the movie is so goofy, though. Having thought about like Roman the Roman and everything, I love watching that movie without MST3K. But season 1 was a bit of a mixed bag as far as I can remember.
It definitely gets better as you go on, I think, for that season. I believe Robot Monster was one of the ones aired out of order, if I'm not mistaken.
The only one that I think was aired out of order was Crawling Eye was aired second, and Robot versus the Aztec Mummy was aired first.
I feel like there was one episode...
And Women of the Prehistoric. No, it wasn't aired out of order, it was made out of order.
Okay.
Okay. Speaking of airing out of order, I don't know how much you guys know about this, but in England, with the show airing on Sci-Fi Europe, we didn't really get much of season 9. But the episodes we did get of season 9, they showed they showed the Hobgoblins and they showed the Puma Man, and then they showed Gorgo. And the funny thing is, they showed Gorgo before they showed it in America. And that was the week that I got the internet for the first time, and Satellite News were like advertising that they were doing a chat to discuss the episode Gorgo. And I had no idea what the situation was. I didn't know if they aired it. I didn't know if they'd aired it in America yet, or if they'd aired it in England. Well, I knew that they'd aired it in England because I saw the episode. But I went into that chat, and everybody else was like, "Oh man, I can't wait to hear what happens in this episode." And I was like, "Wait, what? You guys haven't seen it?" So I spent like 10 minutes of the chat just telling everybody all the stuff that happened in the episode and half of the jokes from the show. And then Sampo and Earhart, the moderators of the chat, walk in and they're like, "What the hell's going on? How come this guy knows all about the episode?" So it was an interesting experience being introduced to all the other fans and just basically being like, "I know everything about the future of the show." I don't know. It was very odd.
Now I gotta ask you, did they air Gorgo? Because there's a weird thing involving Gorgo here. Did they air Gorgo more than once in Europe?
It's possible. You know? I think they may have even aired it twice and then edited it, because they tried sticking MST3K in Europe into a 90-minute slot rather than a 2-hour slot, which meant they had to cut almost 20 minutes of footage out of the episodes. And there was a huge uproar about it. People got really upset. It was, I think it was like 1999 when this happened. And they took episodes like season 8 episodes like Riding with Death and stuff, and I watched them like as they were airing just to see, because I loved that episode, and I realized, wow, there's like half the show is missing. It was really upsetting. And they also did this thing in England and presumably the rest of Europe where every time the characters would say "we'll be right back," they would cut. Like if anything happened after that or even before that, they would cut that whole section out. So the scene in Hobgoblins where Mike and Crow are like complaining. No, Mike and Servo and Crow, I think, are like, "I didn't mean to turn you on." There's a part in that where Mike says, "We'll be right back," but right before he says that, they cut. And of course, when Mike says, "We'll be right back," he turns them all on, so they start complaining. So before he says "we'll be right back," it cuts to the MST3K logo, and all you do is hear people arguing, and you're like, "What the hell just happened?" It was really weird. It was a really weird thing.
Now, is that because of the way the commercials work? And
yeah, it is. But you'd think that we'd be able to understand that. Oh, the commercials are different over there. I mean, it's pretty much understood. And also when you watch the episodes on home video, they still come right back to the show. We're not sitting there being like, "Wait, where are the commercials?" You know, it's you'd think that they assume that we weren't idiots.
Inversely, that happens a lot with English television over here, especially stuff like Doctor Who.
Yeah.
I've noticed they'll have like really awkward cuts where there shouldn't be a commercial.
Yeah, I actually noticed that.
Then just like the Doctor Who logo, and it's like you shouldn't cut there, and then they'll cut out other bits to make room for more commercials.
Yeah, trying to watch stuff on Hulu because they actually add the Hulu commercial breaks so that you can actually keep watching the show, streaming it. I've been trying to watch old like British sitcoms and stuff, and whenever there's a commercial break in the sitcom, they will put like the show logo and they'll have like a natural break for it. But they will try and cut that out because the commercial breaks come in different places on Hulu. So they'll put commercials in the middle of scenes, but then the commercial break happens, and then there'll just be this awkward sort of semi-fade, and then fade back into the next part. It's really weird.
That is very odd. Going back to MST, because we kind of got off topic there.
That's all right.
We do that on the show a lot, more than we care to admit.
We're trying to make better, but we'll get it someday.
Now, we've talked about Pearl and Brain Guy. What's your opinion on Professor Bobo?
I mean, maybe he's written for a different person than me, but I didn't really understand the gimmick behind him. Oh, he's hungry all the time. Oh, he's stupid. That's pretty much it. I honestly thought the one part. I mean, maybe, like I said, maybe it's written for somebody else. But the part where he's like going into the fridge at the end of the one episode in season 8, where he's going to get the brain and then he bites into it. That segment is like 5 minutes long, and as soon as you see the fridge, you know what's going to happen. And I'm just sat there waiting, and there's no variation on it. They don't subvert it or anything. You're just sat there waiting for this joke, this really obvious joke, to just take place. And it takes so long, and it's just that to me pretty much summarizes Bobo. Having said that, when they first introduced him, he was like a relatively intelligent person who kind of seemed very Dr. F-like in personality, and then as soon as his planet is blown up, he becomes this ignoramus. I don't know what happened there. I don't know if that was like intentional or what, but it just I never really liked the character that much.
It's a little known fact that the further you get away from your home planet, the stupider you get.
That's right.
A lot of people don't know that.
Which actually explains a lot about Mike.
Yeah.
That's true. I hadn't thought about that.
I think we've just discovered something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I prefer early Bobo to rest of season 8. Bobo.
Yeah.
I am a mountain gorilla. My name is Bobo, Professor Bobo, son of Coco, and heir to the lineage of Dodo, Momo, and Chim Chim.
And I'm Peanut.
See, I love
That's
Mike as
Dr.
Peanut.
Peanut.
I love that character.
I like Peanut.
And Peanut was good. It was sad that he was only around for those 4 episodes.
Yeah, I mean, they pretty much exhausted all the Planet of the Apes jokes that they could have possibly made, but yeah, he was cute.
Although I really did like the makeup for Bobo. Kevin Murphy's a trooper for putting all that on.
Yeah, honestly, Kevin did the best that he could with that character, and obviously he looked just fine, especially considering some of. I mean, MST3K is a low-budget show, and I'm never going to say, well, that their props suck or anything, but compared to a lot of the stuff they had, Bobo was a pretty great makeup job.
I'm told one of the reasons that Bobo and Brain Guy were created is basically to let the puppeteers do more physical comedy.
Okay.
So, if that was their intention, they definitely succeeded, especially with Kevin.
Definitely. And Brain Guy, as the show went on, especially in Girl in Gold Boots, he did a great job.
What's your opinion on season 10, the final season, sadly?
Yeah, it was a shame that it was a final season, and you could kind of tell about 5 episodes into it that the guys making it would sort of like, oh, the show's over. Well, okay. I don't know, maybe it's just me, because the show just kind of became very dry humor like around halfway through that season. I think season 10 has some of the best theater segments that the show's ever had. I think is it Diabolic or is it Diabolique or however you said?
That's the last one.
Yeah. That episode has some of the greatest theater segments in the entire show's run. I think the host segments wise, I didn't really enjoy it nearly as much as a lot of the other seasons. Girl in Gold Boots was an exception. But it's really hard to not like a season that has like movies like Boggy Creek and Blood Waters of Dr. Z. Those it has some really surreal movies in, and I appreciate it for that. And I, like I said, I watch it for the movies mostly these days, especially because eventually you get to the point where you know the riffs off by heart, but the movie still surprises you. Mm-hmm. And season 10 is full of movies like that, and I enjoyed it. And I like that they finally got away from just doing sci-fi. I mean, I know season 8 and 9 had some non-sci-fi movies, but I think 10 had a nice collection, especially with Girl in Gold Boots. Like I said, that was just straight up just hokey, bad movie nonsense with musical numbers.
Huzzah!
It was like incredibly strange creatures who got killed and became mixed up zombies, except without the zombies.
Yeah, a bit. But what do you think of Soul Taker, the season?
Yeah, I actually, like I said, I was introduced to the internet fandom around the time season 9 was ending, and then a year passed or so, a year or so, like half a year or so, and we heard that Soul Taker was going to be a big deal for MST3K fans because Joel was returning to the show. And I was super excited because was like the peak of my MST3K nerdiness. And I actually stayed up late to chat with fans as they were watching the episode because obviously they didn't show it in England. They never did. But I wanted to hear people's reactions and getting to see people freaking out because Joel was there and everything. It was cool just to see the text on the screen being like, Joel's back. Joel, why are you leaving, Joel? What's wrong? Why are you going away? But yeah, I enjoyed it as an episode. I thought the host segments until Joel showed up were a little bit repetitive. I don't know, but it's really cool to see Joel and Mike on the screen at the same time. And I thought they did. I know it was kind of controversial. I know a lot of people were upset when Joel was just like, I don't want to stay, because obviously he did love those robots. But it had been 5 years, and if you have to choose between staying stranded in space with robots and actually having a life on Earth, I could understand why the guy might not want to do that. And it was funny. At the end of the day, I thought it was a really funny way to write the character into the show and then out of it immediately. I laughed when I saw it, so I had no complaints, and it was just cool to see Joel again, and Frank, obviously. I wish Dr. F could have been it, because seeing Dr. F in the castle with Pearl would have been really cool. But how would they have written him out again? Is the question, you know?
Because he was dead at that point.
That's true. Yeah.
He could always come. He could come back as a Soul Taker.
Yeah.
Like Frank. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
You mentioned that they never aired Soul Taker in England. At what point did Sci-Fi, if you know, what point did Sci-Fi announce they weren't going to be airing Mystery Science Theater anymore in the United Kingdom?
The funny story is they never really made any official announcements. They were very, as far as I knew, Sci-Fi Europe were very, like, they downplayed the fact that MST3K even existed. Like, the first time I watched it, they didn't even list it as MST3K in the TV guide. They just listed it as the Mole People, and then the next week it said the Deadly Mantis. So I only kind of stumbled on it by chance, and then the next week I was like, wait, maybe this show is on again next week. So I looked, and the same time slot had another bad movie. So I was like, hey, maybe this is the same thing. Maybe they'll do this again. And so I watched, and I was like, oh, this is the puppets talking over the movie. This is awesome. So I carried on watching it, and eventually, yes, they acknowledged it in the TV guide as being its own show. I think like they just sort of stopped airing it around the time Gorgo came out. What were the last 4 episodes of season 9?
Josh?
They were Final Sacrifice, Devilfish, Screaming Skull, and Quest of the Delta Knights.
Yeah, because they never showed any of those episodes. Gorgo must have been the last one they showed that, as far as what do you call it, chronologically speaking. I think they carried on airing the show for a while, but it just never got the same popularity that it had in America, and obviously it was confusing to UK viewers because the first episode we got was the season 8 premiere, which must have been confusing for anybody watching the show to start off at that point. I had a cult following as far as I knew, because every so often in the TV guide people would write in about it being like, hey, this show is great, why don't you guys promote it more? And then they just didn't. They just never did promote it. But I'm pretty sure Gorgo was the last one that they showed, and then it just sort of they aired it out of sequence. I'm sure they probably did that in America as well once the episodes are premiered. And I'm pretty sure they showed the majority of season 8. I don't think we ever got the giant spider invasion. I think that's the only season 8 one we never got. And then we got Puma Man. What was the other one? Puma Man, Gorgo, and I forget. There was 3 season 9 episodes. That was about it. We got maybe 25.
Hobgoblins?
Hobgoblins. Yes, that was it.
You know, the weird thing about Gorgo is it only aired twice here in America, and we're still not sure why.
It must have been some sort of rights thing. It must have been expensive for them or something.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Weird how those things work.
Yeah. It was cool though. I kind of liked Leonard Maltin showing up and actually saying that he enjoyed Gorgo. You know. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, especially after I believe it was Leonard Maltin they were ripping on in Soul Taker.
Laser Blast.
Laser Blast, yeah. For for listing it higher than a bunch of other, better movies.
Well, not just higher, but they would be like, this movie is as good as Laser Blast. I thought that was amazing.
Akira Kurosawa's famous beloved Seven Samurai is apparently just as good as Laser Blast.
It's funny because I actually think Laser Blast is. I mean, this is my own opinion. I don't expect anybody to agree with me. I think Laser Blast works a lot better as a finale than the actual finale of the show. Because in my opinion, the theater segments in Diabolic or whatever are great, but the host segments kind of leave a lot to be desired because you're literally just watching them repeat the same thing over and over when they're waiting to get to Earth, and then the song that Mike sings is it's okay, but the great moment in Diabolic is the scene at the end where they're watching the crawling eye together. That's a great way to end the series. But I thought as a whole, Laser Blast had great host segments and great theater segments, and it was just a really great nod to all these different sci-fi movies, and it just hit me more that it was a really strong ending for the show, whereas Diabolic kind of felt like it was them not trying as hard as they could. But I don't know. It was season 10 was a fine season. It wasn't a bad season by any means.
Plus, Mike is Captain Janeway, so.
Oh, that's true. Oh, that is one of the best host segments. I love that thing.
I giggle every time I watch it, just for his Kate Mulgrew impression.
Which I've never seen Stargate or Star Trek. I don't even know what show she's from.
The fans are going to kill you.
Yeah, I'm sure they will be so saddened that I don't know what show Captain Janeway was on. They will revolt over such a beloved character.
Everyone knows it was Star Trek Generations, Josh.
They will revolt of the beloved character.
I like Star Trek. I am in no way associated with Joshua McCloud, except for this.
That's great. His name is McCloud, and Mystery Science Theater 3000. I'm sure he gets a kick out of them saying his name a lot.
My last name isn't really McCloud.
It's not?
No, sorry.
Well, that's a huge disappointment.
Oh, yeah, your name's really LittleKuriboh.
That's true, actually, yeah. I'm living a lie also.
Yeah.
That makes all three of us. I'm not really Toby Mobius.
Mobius is a great name.
Yeah, it is. I just wish people would pronounce it correctly.
Mobius?
I get Mobius a lot. My grandfather pronounces it Mobius. It's Mobius. Like a loop.
Right. You'd think people would get that.
What are you gonna do? I shouldn't have taken my name from Sonic the Hedgehog.
Oh, okay, so it's more Sonic than actual science.
Well, it works better, and actually it's misspelled.
It should be with a U, right?
It should be with
Mobius, yeah.
Yeah. And in Sonic, I believe it's spelled Moebius.
Right.
So, I like this one better. Tobias Mobius.
Mobius.
Reminds me of Arrested Development.
Yes.
The band or the show?
The show.
Okay. I never listened to the band, and I never really stayed with the show that long. So
Aww.
Talk.
Well, you should, because the show is very.
It is really good, and it's coming back next month.
And that
it is.
Happy.
Very
supposed to know these things. So, I mean, getting into the stuff you've done for Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged, I knew you were a Misty. The first time I knew you were a Misty was when you used Clown in the Sky instrumental in one of your villain retrospectives. How has Mystery Science Theater affected Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged, if at all?
Well, I mean, the idea of taking something very ludicrous and just adding what is essentially commentary to it. I mean, I'm not really doing it as literally as MST3K is, but I am taking some of the silliest aspects of Yu-Gi-Oh! And there are a lot of those, and I'm basically just having the characters say how ridiculous they are. So, in a very real sense, MST3K directly influenced the show, because I don't think I would have had half of the cannon fodder that I do without them, because they kind of trained me in a way to be ready at a moment's notice to ridicule something. But I just think in general the show has influenced me a great deal. The first convention I ever went to, and at this point I've been to a lot of those, was Gateway Con in St. Louis, or I don't know how you guys say it. St. Louis, is that right?
St. Louis.
St. Louis, yeah. And it was right after MST3K stopped airing, and it was Kevin Murphy, Mary Jo, Bill Corbett, and Mike Nelson, all appearing for the first time since the show stopped airing. Oh, not stopped airing, but since it stopped being made. And they were appearing, and I got together with all of my friends from the chat room that I hung out in, which was called Deep 13 on the Sci-Fi website. And we all went to see them, and we all met each other for the first time. And I kind of had to force myself to come out of my shell a little bit for that event. So it in a big way, it's had a lot of positive effects on me in general. Not least of which is my sense of humor. I think it's a combination of MST3K and Space Ghost Coast to Coast, because I took the commentary aspect of MST3K and I combined it with sort of taking an established character like Space Ghost and turning him into a really exaggerated version of what he might be like if he were in this situation, like an egotistical talk show host. So I think it's been a bit of column A, a bit of column B in that sense. But MST3K will always be with me. Like whenever I'm watching a bad TV show or a bad movie, there'll always be that switch that I can hit that'll just be like riff mode on, riff mode off. And of course, riff tracks, I keep up with that, so it's always with me.
That's good to hear. Did you hear the most recent? We may as well say, did you hear about the most recent one that they're doing, riff tracks wise?
Which is the most recent one?
Kingdom of the Spiders, starring Mr. William Shatner.
No, I mean I think I saw tweets about it, but I didn't read up on it.
Which is interesting because during the last episode we did, my other co-host, Justin, listed that as a movie they should have done on MST3K. So that was really weird timing.
That's cool. Yeah, I should check that one out.
There's some good riffs in it.
Come on, Project Kill.
Which is Project Kill?
It's a movie from the 70s starring a 50-year-old Leslie Nielsen.
Oh my god.
Back when he was still a serious actor.
Serious actor, yeah.
And it's an action movie, and he's visibly way too old for the part. And the villain is Agent Colonel Sanders.
Oh my goodness.
And it's so good. I got it in a dollar store, and I'm so glad.
That's awesome.
Make the suggestion. Maybe they listen to the show.
Maybe.
Suggestion.
That's kind of what we're hoping.
I've always wanted them. I actually wrote and emailed them while the show was still in production. I wrote and emailed them about this terrible. Well, it's not a terrible movie because I love it, but it's a terrible movie. It's called The Monsters Christmas, and I love all their Christmas episodes. I love Santa Claus Conquers the Martians, and I love Santa Claus. And I wanted them to do another Christmas one. And there's this movie from New Zealand about this little girl who helps these monsters get their voices back from this evil witch who lives in a gymnasium on a volcano top. And I really wanted them to riff the hell out of it, just because it was a big part of my childhood, and it's so bad. I knew it was bad, but I loved it so much, and I just wanted to see them. I wanted to see them do commentary on it. I mean, I kind of want to break down and do commentary on it, like doing my own riff for it or something, because it's one of those movies that I wish more people knew about. But I wanted them to do that one if they did anything. It's nobody's in it, nobody of any importance, but it's just a really stupid kids movie.
Well, you could always do an riff on it. I'm sure you can get people to help you out with that.
I might actually look into that. Yeah.
You just described a movie that I want to see.
The Monsters Christmas?
I definitely am intrigued by this concept.
I'm very surprised that isn't something I haven't seen on like Cartoon Network in December yet. That seems like the kind of thing they would air.
Is this like a 70s movie or?
Let me look it up. It's a really bad. It's from New Zealand, and the only reason I knew that from watching it in like when I grew up was there was so many actual like mountains and volcanoes. And I'm pretty sure it said something about, filmed with the cooperation of New Zealand. Monsters Christmas. Let me see this thing. And everybody had an accent as well. I had to. 1981. Apparently, it's a TV movie.
Those are always hard to license.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough.
I wonder if it's out on DVD or anything.
I think it might be, because I think I bought it for my parents, like, because they watched it with me as a child, and I think I might have bought it for them. I could be wrong. Let me look it up on eBay or something. You got me interested now.
Okay.
Excellent.
Christmas.
Good.
No, I don't think it's out on DVD. Ah, well.
On video?
Maybe, but I mean, who's got one at this point,
Well, hey, maybe for like a convention you could do a live riff of it.
That's a good idea.
Going back to riff tracks, what are some of your favorites that they've done?
Oh, I haven't actually watched nearly as many riff tracks as I would like, but my favorites, and it's probably because I like the movie so much. I really like the Born Identity one. I'm sure nobody else thinks that it's one of their strongest, but I love every time they make like a joke about, what the European hell, and just every time they make it like a European joke, I think it's really funny. And they make like a bunch of Office references on it, like the UK Office, because I think Mike must be a fan or something. So I got a kick out of that. What other ones did I like? I like the Star Wars ones. I like the Twilight ones. I think everybody likes the Twilight ones, and
They're the only things that make the Twilight ones bearable.
Right?
Who doesn't like the Twilight Zone? Twilight Zone. Who doesn't like the Twilight ones?
Right. Yeah, I'm hoping they get to do that in theaters.
Oh yeah, I'm so excited for that.
Yeah, I watched both of the other riff tracks live. Actually, there were three, weren't there? There was Manos, Birdemic, and what was the other one? Oh, Plan 9.
Plan 9, and there's also the Christmas shorts.
With Paul F.
Jack the Giant Killer.
They did those live?
They did the Christmas shorts live.
Oh,
I believe Jack the Giant Killer was also live.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know
and
that.
Really weird timing because then the remake came out.
They probably intended to do that or something.
What are your thoughts on Cinematic Titanic?
Haven't actually seen it. Have not actually seen it, and I'm probably a bad fan for that, but I just haven't.
There's no shame in it, but actually, I believe they are all on Hulu now.
Oh, they are?
I believe so.
I need to check that out. I had no idea.
For a while, it was only a couple of them, but I believe all of them are there now.
There's definitely some.
It
used to be you had to buy the DVD. Now you can kind of find them.
Well, buy the DVD or pay for a download.
Okay, that's cool. I will definitely look into that because I'm a big fan of both aspects. I mean, obviously, Trace and Mary Jo and all those are in Cinematic Titanic, aren't they?
The one for Santa Claus Conquers the Martians, because they redid that one.
Yeah. That
one is actually really, really funny. Like, I didn't think it would be as funny as it is because they're basically treading the same ground, but they bring a lot of new jokes to it.
I thought the same thing about Manos, but I was dying when I saw that in the theater. I loved
the very first real joke is they're being led to where they ripped the movie by their scientist guy, Dave Allen Gruber, and they're being told what the movie is, and Trace goes, "Oh no, and he runs away, and they have to drag him into the theater." And it's got it has something akin to an invention exchange about 30 minutes in by Joel, naturally.
Oh, that's cool.
It's a gift exchange because it's Christmas.
Yeah, do you have a favorite invention exchange?
Oh, it's been a while. What are some of you guys' favorites? And maybe that'll rack my mind, rack my memories.
I've said this before, I'll say it again. I still wish I had the Ethan Allen Ouija board.
Oh, yeah.
I really liked the hospital food IV bags from Master Ninja. I thought that was just really silly, and I really thought that was funny. Plus, I had Jello today.
I don't know if I have a favorite, but I know that if my wife could choose one, she'd probably want me to have the Razorback from Wild Wild World of Batwoman, just because, some of us are hairier than others.
Right.
I'm sorry, I just made the conversation really awkward.
The Godzilla toy that actually shoots fire.
Was that one?
I believe. Yeah, that was a season 1 one, I believe.
Very early. I think it was Mad Monster.
Yeah.
You know what? If I got that toothpaste that Deep 13 invented, I would be dead in like a week.
Famous celebrity vomit scene toothpaste is? Or are you talking about the chocolate toothpaste?
It's like candy toothpaste or something like that, yeah.
Okay, because there were 2 toothpaste ones.
Oh, I didn't realize, yeah.
There's that one, and then there's one where it's like Exorcist famous. It's like Pez dispensers, but they are famous vomiting scenes from movies.
I remember that one, yeah.
Like Mr. Creosote and Linda Blair from The Exorcist, and Jack Nicholson from what's that movie where he vomits?
I'm sure offset he probably did it many times.
Yes. I think they were thinking of a movie where he vomited on screen.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I can't remember.
I don't know. I want to say witches, but that's irrelevant.
The bittersweet hearts, the little chalk hearts. that's become a thing. No, like since MSD, that's become something you can actually buy.
Yeah, that's
on Valentine's Day, which is a beast pick.
There you go.
That's
a weird movie.
I haven't seen that.
I only know it's a weird movie because I think I had it on the TV in a hotel room one time at a convention, and I wasn't watching it, but I fell asleep, and then I woke up, and I was watching it, like, just because that was the only thing that was happening in the room, and I was staring at it, and I was just really freaking out because it was so weird. I thought I was hallucinating. It was so odd. Maybe it was just because I was half asleep.
It was one of the better grossing movies of '87, so...
Yeah.
I mean, it had star power, definitely.
Maybe you were in the minority.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, we are actually coming up on about time for us to leave. So I guess we'll ask you now, what are your top 5 favorite MST3K episodes, and why?
It's really hard to pin down 5 specific episodes, I'll be honest. And I kind of had to, like, because I had so many, like, ones that I love, I kind of had to throw a bunch of them out and just pick a specific 5. But I've tried to cast kind of a wide net and not pick exclusive, like just one season. But I tend to find that season 6 is my favorite, just because I think it's the funniest. And I'm a huge Mike fan as well. I think that's pretty much Mike at his best. But I think if I don't know if this is like if this is in order of preference, but this is how I'll give it to you. Codename Diamond Head. I'll put it.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's actually one of the most underrated episodes. I know every time I tell people this one, they're always like, "Why that one?" But I think it's hilarious. I can watch that one like 100 times, and I won't get, I never get bored. And there's so many jokes that slay me, like driving Miss Lovejoy, and I really like that episode. It's such an offbeat movie, and it's not even a movie. It was a pilot for a show, right?
It was a pilot for a Quinn Martin show that aired and never got picked up.
Right, and I love that about it. I love how they keep being like, coming right up after the break. I mean, after you leave the cinema to go home to your family. Yeah, I love that one. Castle of Fu Manchu is another of my favorites, just because the movie.
Now I know you're in a minority.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
Codename Diamond Head and Fu Manchu, yeah. You are in the minority.
Castle of Fu Manchu, because I honestly think that's probably the worst movie they've ever watched, and it only hits you about halfway through, or even not even halfway through, but like 2/3 of the way through, that it's probably the worst movie they've ever seen, because you get to that point and you realize nothing has happened in this whole movie, and things look like they're happening, but somehow it's tricked you into believing that. It's confusing. And it's
Did Michael
weird.
Bay directed this? What's going on?
It's like when you're in high school and you have to write a term paper and you put in a bunch of fluff just to make it 5 pages long.
Yeah, it's exactly like that.
That's a very apt description of Fu
It's
Manchu.
like being a teacher and reading one of those, and that's Castle of Fu Manchu. Is it like they took a bunch of footage from different Fu Manchu movies and put it together or something?
I know they took footage from like the Titanic, like a Titanic movie from the 30s.
So from not even Fu Manchu movies?
Not even Fu Manchu, and I think they just took stock footage from a dam.
Jeez.
When the dam explodes. So
That's
and that movie has no excuse for being that bad.
Right.
No.
It's an established series, and it's got Christopher Lee, and I mean, it feels like it's okay, like until you get halfway through, and then all of a sudden you're just like, what's happening?
And they just give up.
Yeah, it's really, really bad. And I love that the in the theater segments and in the host segments, the Joel and the bots actually acknowledge how bad the movie is. Because with Manus the Hands of Fate, they kind of react to it, but in Castle of Fu Manchu, they're on the verge of giving up. It's so great. Santa Claus comes next, like the season 6 Christmas episode. Mm-hmm. Is it season 6?
5. Season 5.
Sorry, season 5. I just there isn't a dull moment in that episode, and I love Christmas in general, and the movie is kind of disturbing, but also kind of heartwarming. So I love it for just being so Christmassy and also being so messed up. And all the jokes about Pitch are great. And going to see Rise of the Guardians was very difficult to do with a straight face, with the villain being Pitch and one of the heroes being Santa Claus. I really love that episode, and I love the ending where it starts snowing in space. I think that's very cute. Final Sacrifice, I think it's not possible to have a top 5 list without the Final Sacrifice, because I think most people agree it's one of the best sci-fi era episodes. all the Rousdower jokes and everything. I mean, there's not much I can say about it that hasn't been said already. And I think my favorite, and I struggled with this one, and I really did, and maybe this is a minority thing as well, but The Incredible Melting Man is probably my favorite episode, and mostly because it's really the movie's really, really bad and really off-putting, and it's only made watchable with the riffing and everything, but it has my favorite running joke and ultimately the payoff to it, which is throughout the episode they keep making jokes about him being Dr. Ted Nelson, and then right at the end when the security guards run up the stairs and they're like, "Who are you?" and he's like, "I'm Dr. Ted Nelson," and Servo goes, "Blam, blam, 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 blam." I just thought that was the greatest payoff that they could have possibly done for that joke. So I die every time I watch the episode, so I had to choose that one.
That is a very good choice. Actually, all very good choices. I wouldn't have really thought about stuff like Castle of Fu Manchu, or what was your first one?
Codename Diamond Head.
Diamond Head. That is the one that throws people off. Yeah.
Yeah, but those are not bad choices. I can definitely see why someone would pick those. Fu Manchu, I've always felt is the one the Mads should have been apologizing for, not Manos.
Yeah. I feel
Manos
the same.
is just boring because nothing happens.
Exactly, and that's, it's not offensively bad. It's not like pulling out your own hair bad. It's just like, this movie is bad. But I think they've watched way worse movies than Manos. I think what is it? Most of the Coleman Francis movies are way worse.
Oh yeah.
I think Ring of Terror is worse than Manos.
I'll agree with that.
Monster A Go-Go is worse than Manos.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, Manos is the one everybody remembers.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just because Manos is just that memorable. Like,
yeah,
it's bad,
true.
it's boring, but you'll remember it.
Yeah.
Mainly because of Torgo.
That's true. I think if you took Togo out, it would just be another run-of-the-mill B movie that they watched.
Yeah.
Agreed.
That's the only time Torgo was ever described as a saving grace.
That's true.
Yeah.
Did the sequel come out yet?
I don't believe so.
I don't know.
I think it's still in post-production.
Yeah.
I really hope that it's not like, because when Tommy Wiseau made The Room, he went on and tried and did a bunch of different things, and people took advantage of it, and it kind of felt like he was in on the joke, like he was like, "Oh, I'm so ridiculous, ha ha ha," and then it just became obnoxious. And I really hope that the Manos sequel is people trying to actually pay tribute to the tone and the actual the nature of the original, and it's not just a bunch of people being like, "Isn't Manos a stupid movie? Let's make a bunch of jokes about it." I would prefer something more in keeping with the original. But I mean, it's Manos, so it's not like anything is being ruined.
Yeah, from what I can gather, they're trying to do a pretty semi-serious sequel.
Okay.
Say that 5 times fast.
Well, it's better than Hobgoblins 2, because didn't they just remake the first movie with that one?
Basically.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
You have any final thing to say to the people?
Watch my show, Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged at YuGiOhAbridged.com, and keep circulating the tapes.
Now say that again, but it's Kaiba.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want me to say keep circulating the tapes?
Yeah, or actually do any character voice, just so we can get it in there.
Obey me and keep circulating the tape, Steve.
Yes. That will do nicely. Alright, well, thank you for joining us for this episode. I'm Toby Mobius.
I'm Josh M.
And I'm LittleKuriboh, and thank you for listening to the MSTieCast.
Push the button.
Now, Poopy.